Hello and welcome to your 10 at 10. Today's September 5th, 2023. Today we're going to talk about the power of questions for buyers. These are probably some of the most important things that you're going to have to know when you start working with somebody, right? Now, I always suggest you start with the forward questions, right? Build that relationship before you get into business. Like sometimes we're tempted when we're working with family or friends or whatever to, skip the forward questions. But it is still important, even if it's your brother, your sister, your mom and dad, to have a little bit of relationship building, like at the beginning of the conversation, right? You don't just want to show up and start asking like work related questions. Soften that a little bit. And then when it's time, that's when we start asking the questions, right? Now, I'm thinking of some very specific questions when it comes to buyers, okay? This is right out of the Ninja sales book again, right? Yeah, most of it is right out of there. Some of the conjecture is mine based on my experience, right? Now, this first question, it's going to sound really silly, especially if it's like a close family member or friend or something like that. But it's simple. Where are you living now? Right? That's the first question. And believe it or not, even if it's like a really good friend of yours, you might not know the answer to that. Right? By asking that question in the past, I found out that one of my buddies was actually separated from his wife, wasn't actually living in his house. He was couch surfing on another buddy's house. So that was an important thing to know because he might want to buy a house, but if he's divorced or in limbo, sometimes that creates a huge problem, a huge issue to getting qualified for a loan. And we need to know that. That's one of the most revealing questions, and it's the first one. And hopefully it's like, oh yeah, you know where I live. I live da 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 da. And oh yeah, nothing's going on. We just want to move. Okay, that's the answer we're looking for. But sometimes that's not the answer we get. Um, the next question is also simple, right? How many homes have you owned? Right? It sets the stage for a whole bunch of different things. So sometimes people have only owned one house, and when they only own one house, that gives you the perfect leverage because you're the expert. Even if they say, "Oh yeah, we've owned a dozen or more homes," it still sets the stage for you to say, "Oh, well, that's good. The process has changed a little bit, and I've done this hundreds of times. It's a good thing that we're going through this together." The third question: when you purchased your last home, when you bought your last house, what was the process you used to find it? And you guys all know how powerful that question is too, because you know it's really easy to say, "Oh yeah, that's the old way. Things have changed a little bit, but don't worry about it. I've got the new process. I know it really, really well." Um, and the next question is, how did that process work for you? So we've all of us on this Zoom have heard nightmare stories about other realtors and how hard and difficult it has been for people to find homes, especially in the market the last 3 years, right? This market has been incredibly competitive. And in order for us to be successful for them, right? We need to make sure we have control of the situation so they do what we suggest they do. So they don't have to waste time by learning the hard way and da 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 da, right? Um, and then are you familiar with how real estate works here in West Michigan? Because a lot of times, especially these last couple of years, we've had a lot of clients coming from outside of the area. And one of the things we've learned in real estate class is there is such a thing called local custom. In things in a particular area, right down to a particular municipality, could be different than, in other parts of Michigan or in other parts of the country, not to mention another country, right? So those are questions related to buyers, and I would add a couple of other questions to that, right? Have you spoken to a lender yet? Are you pre-approved? What's your ideal timeline? Those questions are super important too. In fact, just this last weekend, all right, story time. And it's, oh man, asking questions are vital to our efficiency, are vital to our success, are vital to our client's success. So think about this. Friday morning, I got a text message from one of my buyers, and he said, "Hey, Tom, I'd like to see this house north of Muskegon today if possible. It just came on the market." And I said, "Yep, absolutely." And I looked through his file and I'm like, "Hey, I don't have a pre-approval letter for you. Is that something you can get me today?" And then he said, "Well, we're probably," how did he say that? He said, "Well, I've talked to lenders and they said it won't be a problem." And I'm like, "Cool, get me the pre-approval letter, because if you see it and you like it, we're going to have to write an offer today. And in order for a seller to view you as a ready, willing, and able buyer, they're going to want to see that pre-approval letter." And he's like, "Well, we probably won't buy it anyways." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on, buddy. When you get out of work today, please give me a call." And so he called me a little bit later, and I'm like, "What do you mean you're probably not going to buy it?" And he's like, "Well, when we talked, things have changed in the last month since we've talked." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what has changed?" And he's like, "Well, we're pretty sure we want to build, and we'd like to see this house just because of the floor plan. We want to see how our new house, when we build it, is going to flow." And I'm like, "Okay, hold on. That's important. I get that." So it's a holiday weekend, and I was completely honest with him. I'm like, "It's a holiday weekend. I'm not available to show it to you. And I have a problem reaching out to one of my agents to show you a house that you're not going to buy, especially on a holiday weekend." And he's like, "Oh no, I get that." And I'm like, "And I'm glad I asked this question, because there's an open house there on Sunday. Would you be able to attend the open house?" And he said, "Yeah, we can make that." I'm like, "No problem." But all of a sudden, many of our agents would, especially almost all of the agents, right? Not just ours, but in our industry, they would just jump in their car, they'd drive up to Muskegon, they'd show the house. "Oh, you don't," and they'd waste 3 or 4 hours making this happen, right? But because I took the time, asked the questions, put the brakes on, was willing to ask a question I might not want to know the answer to, I saved them some time. I saved me some time. I've saved my agents some time. And now I also have a much better idea of what they're looking for. I did ask questions about, what kind of property they're looking for, and, where and location, and, all of that stuff, and what type of house they want to build. And all of those things are going to help me help them a little bit better. And why? Because things had changed since I talked to them last. And I think that's a good reminder for all of us. Sometimes there's questions we don't really want to know the answer to, but it's our job to ask them up front anyways. Anyhow, I hope this helps you out. Have a great day. Do your best to make today awesome.